Have you ever sat in a quiet room, surrounded by years of memories, only to feel strangely invisible? You've raised children, you've built a career, you've stood firm through wars, losses, and decades of change. And yet, despite the value of your experience, society today often seems to look past you as if age somehow erases your voice. This is not a personal failing, it's a cultural oversight. And as someone who's spent over 3 decades in the field of human health and aging, I've seen firsthand how this lack of respect doesn't just affect the heart, it affects the body. Studies from Harvard Medical School and the WHO have shown that perceived social worth in older adults is directly linked to health outcomes, including rates of depression, chronic inflammation, and even longevity. Let me tell you about Thomas, a retired mechanical engineer from Minnesota, 74. He came into my clinic not because of disease but because of despair. "No one listens to me anymore," he said. His blood pressure was climbing, his sleep was broken, and his motivation to care for himself was fading fast, not due to aging, but due to disconnection. You see, when people feel undervalued, the body goes into silent retreat. Cortisol levels rise, appetite changes, even immune function drops. That's not just emotion, it's physiology. But here's the empowering truth. It doesn't have to be this way. Restoring dignity isn't just about demanding more from society, it's about taking simple, consistent steps to reclaim your well-being, both mentally and physically. Whether that means nourishing your body with the right foods, engaging in gentle movement each morning, or even taking 10 minutes a day to write down what still brings you purpose, it all matters. So today, we're not just talking about health, we're talking about respect as medicine. Because when you feel seen, when your story is honored, your body responds, your nervous system calms, your digestion improves, your energy returns. And before we move forward, if this message resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications. We release weekly senior health tips tailored to your journey. If this video speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps us create content that truly serves you. Now let's move forward and explore how reclaiming your dignity can actually change your health, your relationships, and your future. And now that we've acknowledged the quiet erosion of dignity many older adults face, let's step into a deeper truth, one that shapes how others perceive you long before a word is spoken. We live in a culture that is, quite frankly, obsessed with youth. Everywhere you turn, whether on television, social media, or magazine covers, the message is loud and relentless. Younger is better, faster is sexier, newer is more valuable. Wrinkles are erased in post-production, gray hair is dyed, and slower steps are edited out of the frame. Aging, in this world, is seen not as a badge of honor but as something to hide, to fix, or to fear. But here's what most people don't realize. This obsession with youth isn't just cosmetic, it's cultural. It subtly informs how we treat older adults, how we listen or fail to listen, and even how we define relevance and power. Let me share the story of Margaret, a retired school principal from Oregon. She spent over 4 decades educating generations of children, mentoring teachers, shaping lives. But now, in her early 80s, she tells me she feels more invisible than ever. "I walk into a store," she said, "and it's like I vanish. People look through me." She wasn't exaggerating. Studies from the Gerontological Society of America confirmed that ageism, both subtle and overt, can directly impact an individual's self-worth, mental health, and even immune response. That's right. Your biology responds to how you're treated. When people are dismissed, patronized, or undervalued, their stress hormones spike. Cortisol stays elevated. Inflammatory markers rise. Over time, this chips away at cardiovascular health, cognitive sharpness, and emotional resilience. The body internalizes the message. You are no longer needed. That message, when left unchallenged, can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But here's the powerful counterpoint. Aging is not a decline, it is an evolution. Each wrinkle is a line of poetry carved by laughter, pain, and perseverance. Each silver hair reflects a wisdom no algorithm can replicate. And every slower step carries the rhythm of a life that has learned when to pause, reflect, and move with intention. When you start seeing yourself not through the distorted lens of youth culture but through the clarity of your lived experience, you shift. And that shift changes your presence. Because make no mistake, presence is power. Presence is what happens when you walk into a room and carry yourself not with apology but with quiet certainty. It's when your posture speaks even before your voice does. When your calm becomes more magnetic than someone else's volume. Want to cultivate that? Start small. Begin each morning not scrolling through a phone that tells you what's wrong with your age, but by grounding yourself in breath, posture, and a nourishing ritual. A warm tea, a few moments in the sun, movement that reminds your joints they're still alive and nourished, not just your body but your mind. Practice curiosity, learn something new, engage with others who see your worth and reflect it back. It may sound simple, but these micro habits have macro effects. According to a 2022 study from the University of Exeter, older adults who reported higher self-esteem and daily routines grounded in purpose experienced 30% slower cognitive decline and were twice as likely to remain independent into their late ADSL. So no, the problem isn't your age. The problem is the world's shallow understanding of what age really means. Now let's move forward and talk about the one element that instantly transforms how others see you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. It's not a product. It's not a supplement, it's something far more primal and powerful. Ready? Let's talk about silent strengths and how it can make your presence unforgettable. As we continue this journey of reclaiming dignity and rewriting the narrative around aging, let's turn to something even more personal, something that many don't notice until it begins to fade. Your voice, not just the sound of it, but your willingness to use it. Over the years, I've worked with countless older adults who didn't lose their ability to speak. They lost their belief that what they say still matters. It often begins quietly, almost imperceptibly. Retirement shifts the routine. Responsibilities lighten. New technologies move faster than they used to. And slowly, without even realizing it, people begin to step back. They stop offering their opinions in group discussions. They second-guess their instincts. And worst of all, they assume that younger voices are somehow more valid. Let me share a real story. Walter, a 76-year-old former architect from Colorado, once led design teams on major civic projects. But during one of our health coaching sessions, he told me, "These days, I mostly stay quiet. People are so fast now, I feel like I can't keep up." But Walter wasn't losing sharpness. His blood work, memory, and cognitive function were excellent. What he was losing was permission, the internal green light to take up space again. This, I've found, is not rare. In fact, according to a study by the American Psychological Association, over 60% of adults over 65 report feeling less heard or socially invisible in group settings. And the consequences are far more than emotional, they're physiological. When people consistently suppress self-expression, the brain adapts, stress levels increase, dopamine and serotonin, the chemicals of joy and connection drop, the immune system becomes sluggish. Over time, this internal quiet erodes physical vitality. But here's the truth. Your voice hasn't disappeared, it's only been silenced by doubt. And no, the world won't hand you a megaphone and beg you to speak. It never has. That permission must come from within. When you speak again with intention, with calm authority, rooted in a lifetime of lived wisdom, people will listen. Not because you're loud, but because your presence commands attention. There's nothing more compelling than a voice that knows where it's been, what it has survived, and who it has become. Here's the good news. You can rebuild that muscle, just like any other part of your body. Start in small ways. Speak up in family conversations. Make a toast. Ask a question in public, even if your heart races. Write down your thoughts and read them aloud. These aren't just exercises in courage, they're exercises in neuroplasticity, helping your brain reclaim pathways of identity and visibility. And remember, tone matters more than volume. A quiet voice with grounded energy carries further than a loud voice without clarity. But as powerful as your voice is, there is something even stronger. Presence, that moment before you speak, how you enter a room, how you carry yourself, the calm in your eyes that often determines how others respond to you. Presence doesn't need sound, it needs embodiment, breath, stillness, posture, dignity. Researchers at Stanford have confirmed that individuals with consistent body-mind alignment, meaning they feel congruent between how they move, feel, and act, experience higher social responsiveness, greater immune strength, and reduced anxiety. In other words, when you own your presence, your biology responds in kind. So now, let's move forward. Let's explore what presence actually looks like, and how even without saying a word you can radiate authority, warmth, and the kind of respect that others can't help but return. You don't need to demand space, you simply need to occupy it fully. By now, we've explored how reclaiming your voice and presence can shift the way others respond to you. But there's something deeper that deserves our attention, something that quietly shapes how you see yourself when the room is silent, and the roles you once held begin to dissolve. I'm talking about identity. You see, one of the most profound challenges of growing older isn't physical, it's emotional. It's the quiet disorientation that comes when the roles you've lived in for decades begin to fade. Maybe you were the provider, the fixer, the parent, the leader others turn to for answers, direction, and strength, and suddenly retirement arrives. The house grows quiet. The schedule becomes looser. The world stops calling on you in the same way. And without those external roles anchoring your sense of self, it's natural to wonder, who am I now? This isn't weakness, it's transition. And it affects far more than your thought. That affects your biology. Research from the National Institute on Aging shows that sudden loss of purpose in later life is linked to increased inflammation, disrupted sleep cycles, and even elevated cardiovascular risk. Why? Because the mind and body thrive on meaning, not just activity, but meaningful activity. Let me share the story of Helen, former emergency room nurse from Texas. For 35 years, she thrived under pressure, saving lives. teaching younger nurses and holding families through the worst moments of their lives. But after retirement, Helen felt invisible. "People look at me like a sweet old lady," she said. "But I used to run trauma codes. I used to lead." She wasn't grieving the job. She was grieving the mirror the job had once given her. Here's the truth. Identity doesn't retire just because you do. It evolves. And the mistake many people make is trying to hold on tightly to who they used to be, instead of giving themselves permission to become someone new, someone just as valuable, but perhaps more grounded, more expansive, more free. You don't have to let go of who you were. You simply have to broaden who you are. Can you still lead? Yes, but maybe now through mentorship, through storytelling, through quiet guidance rather than command. Can you still create? Of course. In fact, neuroplasticity studies from UCLA show that older adults who engage in new creative activities, even something as simple as watercolor painting or poetry, experience up to 25% improvement in memory and emotional resilience within 6 weeks. So know your role has not ended. It's shifting. And this new chapter is not about loss, it's about authorship. You are not watching life from the audience. You're still on stage. The lights may have changed. The tempo may be slower, but the spotlight is still yours. If you choose it now, let's move forward, because there's something subtle, almost invisible, that can still shape how others perceive your worth, no matter how empowered you feel. It's not what they say, it's how they treat you. And behind that treatment is something few people talk about. But every older adult feels unconscious bias. Let's explore how unconscious ageism sneaks into daily interactions and what you can do to rise above it, protect your dignity, and reclaim the respect that should never have been in question to begin with. As we've discussed in earlier chapters, your identity doesn't retire, you evolve. But even as you begin to reshape your role in the world, there's one silent force working against that evolution: unconscious bias. This type of bias isn't always loud or malicious. In fact, it's often cloaked in politeness, offered with a smile, wrapped in a gesture of help. But don't be mistaken, its effects run deep. You may have felt it. A stranger assumes you need help crossing the street before you even ask. A cashier slows their speech, assuming you won't understand. A younger relative jumps in to explain something you already know well. These actions may appear harmless, but over time, they send a clear, consistent message. You are no longer capable. That message, repeated enough, becomes internalized. Let me introduce you to James, a former civil engineer and lifelong problem solver. In his early 70s, James was still sharp, physically active, and intellectually curious. But over coffee one day, he confided, "It's like the world started talking to me slower, softer, as if I had become fragile. I didn't feel that way, but eventually I started acting like it." What James experienced has a name: internalized ageism. Studies from Yale University have shown that older adults who are repeatedly subjected to age-based assumptions actually experience reduced memory performance, lower confidence in decision-making, and even increased risk of physical decline. Why? Because perception isn't just social, it's biological. Your brain listens to how the world treats you, and sometimes it adjusts accordingly. But here's the critical truth. You can reverse that conditioning, and you don't need to fight fire with fire. Challenging unconscious bias doesn't require confrontation. It requires presence. It requires clarity. You begin by reclaiming your space physically, emotionally, energetically. Walk with intention. Make eye contact. Speak from your diaphragm, not your throat. When someone speaks over you, gently but firmly re-enter the conversation. Use phrases like, "I've got this," or "Let me finish my thought." These are not acts of rebellion, they are acts of self-respect. And the science supports this approach. A 2021 review in the Journal of Aging Studies found that older adults who regularly engaged in intentional, self-affirming communication strategies were significantly less likely to report depressive symptoms and more likely to maintain autonomy in decision-making. There's another benefit to one that transcends words: emotional resilience. By standing in your own truth, calmly and without apology, you teach others how to treat you. Now let's move forward, because while unconscious bias can chip away at your dignity silently, there's a force even more powerful that can restore it instantly without speaking a single word. It's not about being louder. It's about learning the silent strategy used by some of the most respected leaders in the world. And once you understand this tool, you'll notice a shift not just in how others look at you, but in how you carry yourself. Are you ready to explore the art of intentional presence, and how this quiet technique can reframe your entire experience of aging, confidence, and influence? Let's uncover it together. So far, we've talked about how unconscious bias can quietly diminish your presence. But now, let's shift towards something far more powerful: the ability to transform how others treat you, starting not with them, but with you. Here's the truth. Changing how people perceive and respond to you doesn't require a confrontation or a dramatic declaration. It begins with something quieter but far more lasting. It begins with how you show up. Many older adults have unknowingly absorbed the belief that their best years are behind them. Not because it's true, but because society keeps repeating that message in subtle ways. Over time, that belief becomes behavior. People speak more softly, walk with hesitation, withdraw from decision-making, but I want to tell you as a lifelong, a health professional and someone who has worked with thousands of aging adults, respect is not something handed to you automatically, it's something inspired. And it begins the moment you walk into a room. Your posture matters. Stand tall, move with intention, look people in the eye. These aren't just social cues, they're physiological signals. Neuroscience tells us that posture and movement affect self-perception and hormonal balance. Standing tall boosts testosterone and lowers cortisol. It calms the nervous system while activating clarity. And others feel that shift, often, before you say a word. Take Lillian, a 79-year-old retired professor from Boston. She once shared with me that after her husband passed, she began slouching unconsciously. I didn't want to take up space, she said. But during our coaching, she began practicing posture resets, walking every morning with shoulders back and eyes forward. Now, she said, when I enter a room, people don't talk over me. They pause, they wait. That's the power of presence, and when you speak, slow down. Not because you're unsure, but because people who carry authority never rush. They pause before answering. They choose words with intention. And that space, that pacing, it commands attention. It's not volume that creates respect. It's gravity. Another overlooked behavior. Stop apologizing for being seen. Too often older adults defer by habit, giving up their turn, saying sorry for speaking too long, or yielding to younger voices. But you've earned your place. You are not interrupting, you are contributing. And the world needs what you know. Still, transformation isn't only about external gestures. It's also about staying engaged mentally, emotionally, socially. Curiosity is ageless. Keep asking questions. Learn new tools. Read, write, experiment. Studies from the Harvard Aging Brain Institute confirm that older adults who engage in lifelong learning reduce cognitive decline by up to 38%. And when others see you evolving, they rethink what aging looks like entirely. And your emotional presence, it's magnetic. You don't need to demand respect. You need to embody calm confidence. That kind of energy slows the room down. It tells people, I'm here, I'm grounded, I know who I am. Now let's talk boundaries. Respect also comes from clarity. If someone cuts you off, don't shout, simply say, please let me finish. If your voice is ignored, assert gently, I'd like to share something important. These aren't confrontational, they're corrective. And they teach people how to treat you. Ultimately, the greatest shift happens not in what others do, but in what you believe about yourself. If you consistently place yourself last, dismiss your worth, or shrink in shared spaces, others will mirror that. But if today you choose to value your voice, your time, and your contribution, others will rise to meet that standard. You don't need to be younger. You don't need to shout. You don't need permission. You simply need to stop shrinking. Stop waiting for someone to tell you that you matter. Because the moment you believe it, the world will follow. And once that shift happens, it doesn't just change how people treat you. It changes how you see yourself. By now, you've seen that reclaiming respect doesn't require shouting or waiting for permission. It starts with how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you believe in your own worth. You are not just a witness to the world, you are still a part of it, shaping it with your presence, your choices, and your quiet strength. Yes, growing older comes with change. Yes, society sometimes forgets to look beyond the surface, but none of that can define you unless you let it. Your value was never tied to youth. It's tied to your story, your resilience, and the way you choose to show up now. So let today be the turning point. Walk a little taller, speak a little slower, but with more certainty. Let your eyes remind others that you're still here, still evolving, still becoming. You don't have to prove your worth. You simply have to live it clearly, calmly, an unapologetic ally. If there's one truth I've learned in all my years of studying human health, it's this. The moment you choose to respect yourself, the world begins to do the same. Now I want to hear from you. What's one insight from today's message that really spoke to you? What's one shift you're willing to make starting now? Share it in the comments. We read everyone, and your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you found value in this video, consider liking it to help others find it too. If you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so and turn on notifications so you'll never miss the conversations that matter most. Thank you for spending your time with me. Until next time, walk in your truth and let the world adjust.